And I hope you enjoyed that little musical rendition there in the background. Yes, that was not the Piano Guys. That was another artist that I rather favor from YouTube, a young lady by the name of Lindsay Sterling, who apparently started out as a street musician and is now quite the hit on YouTube. I understand she's actually making a living doing it. So more power to you, Lindsay Sterling. Hope you hope you find a way to make a living with your passion. But for now, we have our next presenter waiting in the wings, ready to come on. I'd like to introduce Vickie Barker. And Vickie, I'm going to shut up and turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Gary. And that was a beautiful piece of music. And the show just before this with Leanne Phillips, that is some astronomical, beautiful music. Thank you so much for all that you do. And yeah, this is Vickie Barker, and I'm here. I have a website I work on continuously. It's a working website, so you'll see it change from time to time as different things happen. But I'm very happy to be here with United We Strike. We have this marathon every month. Gives us some time to catch up with each other, kind of connect a few more dots out there. And it's such a wonderful time this time to come together because we're actually in spring, and it's just beautiful. I think everyone has their focus now on getting their food in, ensuring that they're going to have some really tasty meals coming up. I know that's what I'm getting ready to do. And we have to start thinking and planning ahead just a little bit, and we find that it sure makes life easier. And that's what United We Strike has helped us do here in our family, is that, you know, when it first started a few years ago, the idea of taking one day off a month, pull yourself out of the system. Don't go shopping, you know, don't spend your money out there. And just sit back and start questioning some of the things around you, asking why these certain things are happening. And, you know, that one day, I've known Karen Tostada now for probably going on 5 years. And what it's allowed us to do as a family is that one day turned into a weekend. We thought, well, this is pretty easy. This is nice, having the family just home. We aren't committed to being anywhere, to going out and spending money. We don't have to go fill the car up with gas. And it was such a nice experience, we started looking at our budget a little bit and realizing, you know, if we did a little extra shopping here and there, we might not have to go out for a couple of weeks. And so we tried that, and it worked very well. And pretty much now, a lot of my family, we shop once a month and sometimes once every 2 months if we really think ahead. But that's what it comes with, just planning ahead. It isn't that hard to live if we just take a little bit of time, look at what the necessities are that we need. You know, we have to remember 100 years ago, there wasn't a Walmart, there wasn't a local shopping center. Pretty much our parents and grandparents had it all figured out. I spoke to my mom this morning on the phone, in fact, when we were talking about that very thing, and she said, you know, I remember my dad had a sawmill, and he'd saw some lumber, and before winter every year, he'd take a truckload of lumber somewhere, and she said, I don't know where he went, but when he came back, he had bushels of apples and potatoes, bags of coffee and sugar, and the staples, and she said, we never shopped. We never had to worry about food. Our pantries were always full. And we just spent that time, usually, I know my family played music every night. So my uncles and aunts, and they'd all gather around Grandma playing the piano. And that's where they spent their quiet times in the winter months. So, you know, we've gotten so far away from that. And now we're living in a world that it seems like every day something is taking our energy. We're a land that's based on fear. We're afraid that if we don't get down to get our registrations, our license on this vehicle, that vehicle, we've got taxes coming due, we've got mortgages to pay, the kids need new shoes. You know, we're wrapped up in this so much, and I think it's happened gradually that people have actually pulled away from the old ways of thinking, the easy ways, and we've done this to ourselves. We started thinking that, you know, we needed these things. These are just things. But we don't really need them. But it's been such a luxury that people have grown so accustomed to. And we look at our ailing people, the people that are out there sick from so many different influences from the environment. But much of this we've done to ourselves. You know, the GMO foods, those GMOs are horrible things. We should never be ingesting anything that's a GMO. It's doing some deleterious things to our digestive systems. We're starting to see a lot of people complaining about stomach ulcers and problems with stomach, lots of breathing problems from the continual spraying that we see from the geoengineering, the chemtrails. And there's not a whole lot that we can do to stop and prevent the air being adulterated. But we can make the better choices on our food and our water. And these are the simple things. And these are the things that really the family appreciate. It's when you take time to sit down and, talk to them about the simple ingredients in some of these packaged and prepared foods. These aren't normal. This was a convenience put in place by a huge marketing ploy for big business. And now we've become dependent on them. So I think, if I could encourage anything out there anymore, is to get out the old recipe books and start doing some things with your family, teaching your children how to bake some of these things at home that they've grown accustomed to. It's more of a participatory thing when you really bring the family into it. And I really think these are the things that are going to pull us out of that, is getting out of that trap of being fearful that we have to have so many things to fulfill our lives. We have to realize, I heard this the other day and it just was really stuck with me, is that if it wasn't for money, we'd all be rich. And really think about that, how deep that little statement goes. If it wasn't for money, we'd all be rich. What would it be like to be in a world where you weren't dependent on that money? And what has money shown us in the past? We're looking at a world right now that has been so corrupted by big business, big government. The entire planet is being run by a committee of 300 people. Okay, there's 300 people. There's a list. I'll post that in the chat room too, so that folks can go there and look at that list of names. But those are the people that are in charge of every aspect of everything going on in the planet, on the planet today. They oversee the GMO foods, really. They're allowing it. They oversee and encourage the geoengineering, the spraying. They might not be flying the planes, but they certainly have enough people that they pay with their money to do these things for them. And they're actually enjoying this. And I think that's probably the hardest thing I had to get through, was that anger. First, there's a little bit of fear there of like, wow, these guys are so strong, so big. The Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Queen of England, they own us. There's nothing we can do. We'll never be able to change. We've lost the United States, the Constitution. We've lost all these things. And, you're pretty fearful. You're living in a world where you really don't know if they're going to come and start picking people up to fill up the internment camps or not. And then you go through a stage of anger that, why would anybody in their right mind ever want to harm another person or an animal or life in any form on the planet? Why would anybody truly want to do that? And then you think, there are guidelines out there that we as humans have always respected. We've tried to follow the Golden Rule. There's the 10 Commandments. Those seem to work just fine for all those years. And now we've got, over 7 million laws on the books here in the United States. These laws range from everything you can think of. But when you think about it, we're supposed to be living under over 6-7 million laws that we are supposed to know that we can or cannot do certain things. That adds to a bit of fear. So we've got to learn to get away from it. And the way that I found to do that is to step back from the whole thing and look at yourself as a responsible person that you are. And wonder, now, if this was happening down the street, the abuse. Now, I'm going to use one for instance here because this is a pretty big thing for me. Coming from state government, working in the state of Oregon, there was a lot of missing children there. When I left state service, there was like 5,000 children that just, poof, they had vanished. They'd taken them into Children's Protective Services, had taken them away from their families. They were moved into foster care and moved from that foster care to another foster care. But at the end, I can't remember what the period of time was, but at the end of this time when I was leaving, there was 5,000 children missing. And that always weighed on my heart. because of the service I was in. I was connected with children's services to a point. And so some of these same families were the ones I was dealing with in my service. And my heart would always go out to these families because their child was gone, was in foster care. But then later on, you'd talk to these families and it was like their child had disappeared. They're just not on the books. The files are missing. Well, that number I had heard later had grown to 8,000. So that was something, even though I had left, I'd moved on in my life, it was one of those haunting things, you think about every once in a while. And then there's been a lot of research done here lately of the Queen of England. And there's been some pedophile charges brought up, crimes against humanity, against some of those people over there. And we start realizing the power that they've perceived that they have to even allow them to think that they could take children and use them in such ways. Because you and I know if there was a child being abused down the street from us and it was very blatant and very easy to see, that you and I would probably step in at some point. And we'd say, hold on here, this is not going to fly here. You're not going to, beat this child or do whatever it is. This has to stop. Because that's the responsible part of us. That's our heart telling us right from wrong. And that we do have to speak up. And then you look at the magnitude of the adulteration and the attacks on people's lives, their freedom, their rights, their liberties, and you start following that. And people for years have told me, oh, follow the money. That'll lead you to them. Follow the money. Well, you can follow the money, and where it leads you is to a committee of 300 people. So there's 300 people on the planet that are making these decisions. Now, think about this for a moment. We've got people like Charles Manson. We've got people like Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay? There are laws that are in place to protect society from people with deranged minds, deranged mental capacities. So these people are diagnosed as sociopaths, psychopaths. Okay? Of that 300 people, we need to start questioning what percent of those people, if they had a mental evaluation done by professional, independent psychiatrists, how many of those people would actually be able to be classified and diagnosed as sociopaths, as psychopaths, schizophrenic maybe? And these are the ones that are calling the shots for what our Army does, what our military-industrial complex does, what these corporations do. Those 300 people control the banks. They control the oil industry. They control every industry that has been, privileged to have taken up occupancy on this planet. So we really do need to step back and realize who we really are, because if you take the money away, that levels the playing field and it makes it easier for us to realize that these are some crazy people. And they're deciding our fate, your children's fate, the grandchildren's fate. They're deciding the fate of the planet. And this is where we have to unite and come together and understand that we're being used, and what's happening here is we're allowing these mentally compromised people to rule our lives. Now, how ridiculous is that? Charles Manson may have not ever killed a person personally, but he had it done for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be locked up. But he is locked up, and what I'm proposing to people is that we take a serious look at all of the alternatives that we might have available to us. Now, it's not that I particularly think very much or very high of the psychiatric community, because believe me, I know throughout my own family how that whole industry has harmed people. But this is an industry that is well received by millions and millions of people, obviously, or we wouldn't have 60% of the people running around out there on these psychotropic drugs, on the SSRIs and for the antidepressants. We wouldn't have so many of our military men on these psychiatric drugs if it weren't that people put so much vested interest into the psychiatric community. So why not start using that community that has been used against us for so very long and turn the tables a little bit? Get some independent, international, from around the world, psychiatrists, people that are credible in the field, and have them do some assessments for us. We've got the list of names now. We know who the 300 people are. And it isn't very hard these days to find out where they're at. It isn't very hard to find a lot of profiles on them, speeches they've done, committees they've been represented on. There's enough information on each and every one of them, I believe, to have a good psychiatrist, somebody that's credible, that knows their business, because these people could literally be diagnosed and certifiably insane according to their own books, their own mental health diagnostic manual. So wouldn't it be great to be able to approach the people of the world and say, well, yes, you know, you've got these people here working at Monsanto that's taking over all these family farms, displacing all these people so that they have that land to grow these tainted, toxic products in this ground, but yet they're a bunch of crazies, and I mean that literally. And once we start taking back that and realizing that, you know, they're not perfect people, they shouldn't have and be charged with something to be in charge and lord over other life on the planet. Right now we have over 200 species of life going extinct every day. 200 a day. I don't know how many species of life are on this planet. I don't even know where humans rate in the whole scale of where we land in the numbers of species. But 200 a day, eventually it's going to get to our number. So unless we start looking at things and removing ourselves from that fear, we have to take that responsibility individually to know who we are. And once we realize who we are, we have won. Victory is ours. Because no longer do we have to stand by and let a bunch of crazies make the decisions for us. You know, when we were children, I was very blessed to have parents that helped make decisions for me to keep me safe. I respected them. I put a lot of value in them. And, you know, I'm very thankful because they were able to see things that I as a child could not. But we don't live like that anymore. We've got some really ugly things going on in this world, and it's only because of those few people. And even though, you know, we look at the Council of Foreign Affairs, we know that's a big bad group, we know NATO, the UN, but really they're all under that committee of 300. So basically we've got 300 people pulling the strings on thousands and thousands of their puppets, and these puppets are putting us in a very precarious predicament because we've got concern over our food supply. Even though we're growing our own, we have to worry about what these guys are doing here on the next field over because they're planting GMO food. Okay, so we've got that to think about. We've got the waters being polluted. I don't know if anybody's keeping up on all the pipelines, but it seems like Exxon, BP, they put in these pipelines so many years ago without spending a dime on upkeep and maintenance, and we've got pipes blowing out all over. I think there's something like 30 pipes blown. I think 12 of them, 10 or 12 are here right in the United States. So we've got, you know, black oil flooding through towns in Arkansas. We've got a dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico now from the huge oil spill. We've got people that are, you know, setting up fracking right next to these people's farms. We've got, you know, and it's like the people feel helpless. It's like we have city councils. Why are they not doing anything? So once we start understanding who we are, I keep going back to that, folks, because we are so much more than we think we are. The power of the energy of our hearts, when we come together as one, it's going to be something that the evil ones, the dark ones, they can't understand it. These psychotic people, they don't care what life they destroy, and it really is part of their disease. I watched several of Charles Manson's parole hearings when he had come up for parole, and there's a long story about Charles Manson, why I focus on this man, but my family and I happened to be on his hit list for a while. So when the FBI contacted us after they arrested him, they said it was by law they had to contact everybody on his hit list, and we happened to be on that hit list. So it was something that really scared me, and I was a very young mom. I was like 18 or 19 year olds, had my new little baby girl, and I'm on this monster's hit list now, and I was really freaking out about it. And he scared me. He scared me very bad. I couldn't stand to look at pictures of him. But as I grew up a little bit and started really realizing that there's always a reason why people are the way they are, I really did get interested in Charles Manson. So I would watch his parole hearings. One reason was I wanted to make sure he didn't get out. But I started learning from that. And here he is. He's got some mental problems, of course, diagnosed clinically insane. And you listen to the man, and one of the parole officers was saying, Charlie, if you just say you're sorry for what you did. And Charlie would look at him, and he'd say, I don't know what that means. And the guy says, well, it means showing remorse for what you did. And Charlie, very sincere, you could tell in his eyes he was sincere. He said, I don't know what it is. He said, can you tell me? Can you make me feel it? So I know what remorse is. I don't know. I don't know what sorry feels like. And it hit me that moment that is part of that mental problem, is that they can take lives, they can hurt other people, they can do these nasty things, and they have no remorse. That is a feeling that they are not allowed to feel because of the mental capacity that they're in. And this is the same with the Committee of 300. Do you think that the Queen of England, if she hears of some horrible thing happening, do you think that her heart cries? Do you think that she feels sorry for that family that just lost their home to a fire? It's beyond their capability. So now it's a time for us to step in and say, well, somebody has to be the adult here. And it's time for the people to fill those shoes. We have got to become the adults. We've got to become the responsible people, because there's not anybody else out there to do it. There's so many of these groups and organizations that still feel that the Bilderberger groups have something over on them, that they're more powerful. Folks, they're not more powerful. They just have more money. So scratch the money, and that helps us get back to a level playing field. We're all rich. You take money out of the equation, we're all just as rich. We're all just as powerful, and fortunately, all of us aren't going to be diagnosed as psychopaths, sociopaths. There's a lot of good, level-headed thinking people out here. So I think one of our callings is to get ourselves in place for when this change happens, because it is going to come. The victory's won. There's enough people now that have awakened. We've reached that tipping point. The scales are tipping. The dark side is now being brought up into the light. They're starting to shine on all these dastardly things that they've done. People are recognizing that this was a bad thing that they did. This was a lie. They've killed millions of people over here in these wars based on lies. The light is shining on them. And now if we can keep that pressure on, that's all well and good. But we really do need to start looking at how we're going to put our communities together and be able to hold each other up until we make it through the wake. There's always a wake. There's this wave that comes through because of the shift in the powers. Now the people are going to have the power back. Now what are we going to do with it? And I really want to give a good plug here for David Frank and his program that he's wanting to get in place. He was on just an hour or two ago on United We Strike. And his is, if you want to look at that website, it's onevoicenow.info. This will give us an opportunity at the local level to make sure that our needs are addressed, that we don't have people out there hungry or without homes. We can take a serious look at how each community can help hold each other up, and it will give us a voice. If there's things that we do need to vote on and come to a consensus, then onevoicenow.info is going to give us that medium that we need. We have so many people that are still watching television. If they had one place that they could tune in every evening, sit around the family, find out the local issues going on. Our issue here in the hills in California may be far different than the people living down around, say, L.A., and we know they will be. So our needs are going to be different than theirs. So they need their circle, their communities, their local communities to be able to be connected for when the time comes. We need to cut the cords where we've tied into these crazies long enough. It's time to pull the plug and get back to reality here. So
hey, Vickie,
I just want to.
Vickie,
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry
knew you were
to butt
coming
in.
on.
You just knew it. You
Yeah,
felt
I
it in your
did.
bones. You know.
I did. He's coming. He's coming. I knew it.
You've got about a minute to do a
All
little
right.
bit of blatant self-promotion. Please tell
Okay.
where people can find more of your material and catch up more on what you're doing.
Yep.
But only about a minute left.
Okay, I'll talk really, really fast, Gary. If everyone can, like I said, my website is a working website. I have quite a few websites, but itisherenow.com is one where I'm trying to pull things all into one point so it makes it easier for me to do what I do, but I find it is very easy for other folks too that want to just get in there, find out what the late breaking news is there anything that they need to be concerned about. So itisherenow.com, it's www.itisherenow.com. That will link you into various groups and organizations that are working tirelessly, putting together a better plan to pull us out of this sinking ship that we're on here. Please click on the geoengineering link at the very top. There's some very important information there. Get involved. If it means just sending one email to one person, whether it's handing out one flyer, there's all kinds of options there for people to be involved, to do something to help us make the world a better place. And exposium.com, that site's going to be up and running. If you go there, just put in your name, you'll get on the mailing list, and then as things come out, we'll start sending out some emails as things start really rocking and rolling. But get in place to be in the loop of information, find out the things that are important, let go of the things that aren't, get your hearts right, and get ready to take back this world and create a world that we all want to live in, that we all want our children to grow up in. Thank you again for UnitedWeStrike.com. This marathon gives us all an opportunity to come together, to share, to know that we're all here working together, living together, and loving together. So with that, I'm going to let you have it back, Gary. God bless
Alrighty.
everyone.
Thank you very much, Vickie. It was a pleasure. You have a good evening now. And I'm going to take us out with another Lindsey Sterling rendition. This one's called Transcendence. Hope you enjoy.